Welcome back to the Second Order Success channel, where we talk about the decisions, systems, and trade-offs that determine whether customer success actually scales or quietly breaks as companies grow. Today, we're talking about one of the most common and most avoided questions in customer success. How many customers can one CSM really handle? This question comes up all the time, and when teams ask it, they're usually hoping for a reassuring answer. Something like, good CSMs can handle more. We just need better tooling or a few more systems. All of which sound perfectly reasonable, but they're also a very effective way to avoid doing the math. Because the uncomfortable truth is this: capacity isn't a philosophy problem, it's not a talent problem, and it's definitely not a motivation problem. Capacity is a math problem. And most teams would really rather not do that math. Instead, they rely on gut feel, historical precedent, or whatever number they've managed to survive with so far. 20 customers, 40 customers, 100 customers. The number gets set once, usually early on, and then quietly becomes dogma. No one remembers why it was set, it just becomes the number. And that number almost never reflects reality, because it ignores what the job actually consists of. A CSM doesn't just own accounts. They run onboarding, they lead training, they handle renewals, they manage escalations, they respond to internal questions, join sales calls, they clean up data, they chase stakeholders. And somehow, in between all of that, they're supposed to be proactive. All of this happens across customers who are at completely different stages with completely different needs. So when teams say a CSM can handle 50 customers, what they usually mean is they can survive 50 customers, not that they can do the job well. That distinction matters because surviving isn't the same as creating outcomes. Here's the first mistake most teams make. They count customers, but they don't count work. They look at a book of business and assume every account carries roughly the same weight. But in reality, capacity is not driven by logos, it's driven by interactions. Calls, emails, Slack messages, internal coordination, follow-ups, fire drills. Those things don't scale neatly or politely. A customer in onboarding can easily consume 5 to 10 times the effort of a mature customer. An at-risk customer consumes far more time than a healthy one. And a single strategic account can quietly outweigh 20 low-touch ones. If you ignore that, your capacity model is already wrong. So here's how teams should actually think about the math. Instead of starting with the number of customers, start with time. Take a CSM's week and strip out the things that aren't optional. Things like internal meetings, admin work, context switching, documentation, async communication. What's left is the time they can actually spend doing customer-facing work, and that number is usually much smaller than teams expect. Then, break customer work into rough categories. Things like onboarding work, ongoing adoption work, renewal and expansion work, reactive escalation work. You don't need precision here, you just need honesty. Ask a simple question. In a normal week, how much time does each of these actually take? Not ideally, not in a perfect quarter, but in reality. Once you do that, patterns show up pretty quickly. You see that onboarding dominates time, that escalations create spikes, that renewals don't arrive evenly spaced and politely scheduled, and that a small number of accounts drive most of the work. That's the math most teams avoid, because once you see it, you're forced to make decisions. Do we limit how many customers can be in onboarding at once? Do we tier service levels? Do we move certain work out of CS entirely? Or do we accept that quality is going to drop? Those are uncomfortable trade-offs, but they're still better than pretending capacity is infinitely flexible. There's one more piece teams often miss. Capacity math only works if engagement boundaries are real. If every customer can email, Slack, book time, escalate, and ask for custom help whenever they want, then capacity isn't actually being managed. It's being negotiated in real time. Without clear boundaries, the math collapses. Your model might look fine on paper, but it gets blown up by a handful of customers who quietly take far more time than their share. That's not a customer problem, that's a design choice. Clear engagement boundaries are what make capacity predictable. They define what customers can expect, how work flows, and where CS time is intentionally protected. We'll go deeper into how to set those boundaries in a future video, but for now, the key point is this. You can't solve the capacity math if every interaction is optional, negotiable, or unlimited. Boundaries aren't about saying no to customers, they're about making the work sustainable. The second mistake teams make is assuming efficiency will save time. They say things like, if we just streamline onboarding, if we automate health scores, if we standardize playbooks. Sure, those things help, but they don't change the underlying math. Efficiency improves how work is done. It doesn't reduce how much work exists. If you give a CSM more customers because you added automation, all you've done is refill the time you freed up. That's not scaling, that's compression. And compression always shows up somewhere else. Usually as missed follow-ups, shorter calls, delayed responses, or quiet burnout. The third mistake is ignoring variability. No 2 weeks in customer success look the same. 1 week is calm, the next week 3 customers escalate, a renewal goes sideways, and a product issue lands. Capacity models built on averages break immediately under that kind of variability. CSMs don't experience averages, they experience spikes. And good capacity planning absorbs spikes without breaking people. Which brings us to the real question teams should be asking. Not how many customers can one CSM handle, but rather, how much work can one CSM sustain week after week without heroics? That question forces different answers. It forces you to define what work actually belongs to CS and what doesn't, and what gets deprioritized when things get busy. Because capacity isn't about finding the maximum number, it's about choosing where quality degrades first. Every team has a breaking point. The difference between healthy teams and burned out ones is whether that breaking point is designed or discovered by accident. If your CS team only works when people overperform, your capacity model is already broken. And if your best CSMs are the ones barely holding things together, that's not excellence. It's a warning sign. In the next video, we'll talk about why engagement boundaries are the missing piece here and how they make everything else actually work. If this was useful, hit like so more people who work in customer success can see it. If you've got thoughts, pushback, or examples from your own team, I genuinely love to read them, so please leave a comment. And if you want more breakdowns like this, subscribe. That's how I know this is worth continuing. I'll see you in the next one.